Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen, back with another weekly astrology update. This is episode 279. Guys, I am so sorry. I checked out of last week's episode. As you guys know, I am mostly all mutable energy between Gemini, Virgo. We got some Pisces in there. So I made a very important and fast decision in my life last week. Kind of dropped the hammer and let the chips fall where it may, which is very much about last week's energy with Mars in Sagittarius squared Saturn in Pisces. So last week, I know I'm not alone, my mutable energies there. That is, again, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, Pisces. There was a lot of interesting energy that happened last week. So I was kind of riding the change in my life, sort of the weird, awkward feeling when you sort of shift a paradigm, when you make that decision, and it's like the energy just, whoop, goes a whole different direction. So I just was not able to get out last week's episode. The beginning of this week will still feel a little wonky, but by the end of the week we have a new moon in Sag, so things will hopefully feel a little bit better, more refreshed. But I can tell you, since last week, the veil has been lifted. All right, especially we have Neptune station direct getting ready to move out of Pisces for the last time in our lifetime. I will talk about that, but that is definitely bringing a lot of clarity to my mutable placements last week, but maybe it came not in the direction you had hoped. It maybe was a little bit chaotic. It was maybe a little bit electric. It was maybe a little bit eccentric, but either way, it wasn't calm energy. So Monday, December 15th, today, 2:33 a.m., we had Mars entering Capricorn. Then on Tuesday the 16th, Mercury leaves its shadow, period. Finally, it was finally totally away from this Mercury retrograde. We can say it officially ends in Sagittarius. Also at 11:33 p.m. on Tuesday, the Sun in Sag will square Saturn in Pisces. Then on Friday the 19th, we have the new moon in Sagittarius, 8:43 p.m. This is going to be interesting because it conjuncts Venus and squares Saturn and Neptune. So that's a lot of energy at play. My mutable placements are ending this year in a way that feels like you have finally surrendered to the change that needs to happen. Most likely pulled the trigger last week, you know, a couple weeks prior to that, pretty much since we entered Sagittarius season. And by the end of the year, you're walking blindly forward, entering this energy that's between this paradigm shifts. The energy is uncomfortable, but you're getting comfortable with getting uncomfortable. Feel the fear, but do it anyways. That was my mantra all last week. Feel the fear, but do it anyways. Fear is not going to kill you, and the relief you feel when you get to the other side of fear makes it so much worth it. Okay, let's jump right into the new moon Sag before we talk about Mars and Capricorn, since we're already in that conversation. This new moon in Sag is going to feel like you have hope and belief again going into 2026. Let's jump into this new moon and with new refound hope in your life path, your desires, your creativity. My mutable placements are finally seeing a clear vision again. I feel like last week really lifted the veil. There's no more confusion between the subconscious and the conscious. Like, you could hear the banter back and forth. That's what's really funny when you really tune in with your mind and the different energies at play. It's almost like when you are in something, when you're doing something, and especially when you know you're not supposed to, or you're not meant to, or it's not right for your energy, you literally, if you pay attention, will hear the other side in your mind telling you what the truth is, telling you, hey, you know you shouldn't be doing this, or hey, this isn't good for you, or hey, this doesn't feel right, or hey, there's this red flag, or hey, blah, blah, blah. You guys get what I'm saying. But it's almost like an ADHD mind, I'll say. Sometimes I know I'm supposed to do something, but I just see blurry vision with the idea of going to get that thing done. This is the same thing until you're ready. It's like your conscious knows, your subconscious is screaming at you, but it's blurry until you are ready to do it. And when are you ready to do it? In divine timing, because that is one thing that is true. Everything is divine timing, at least in my life. That's my perception. That's certainly the way it has showed up. So you've been hearing this banter back and forth. There was this energy of lost and confusion, especially over this last year. I don't know about you again, but the other voice is, just think about that and pay attention to it this week. It is always telling you the truth. It's just your consciousness doesn't always want to listen. So, until one day it does. Now, Neptune direct for one last time in Pisces has been bringing up a lot of clarity for my mutable placements, especially around a life lesson, a soul lesson that began about 15 years ago when Neptune first entered Pisces. If you're not sure of that lesson, go to your birth chart. See what house Pisces rules over and what house is Neptune located in your birth chart. So that's 2 different points. Look into the house descriptions. If you have a book, if you look online, maybe some of you already know. And also for both the houses of where Neptune is located and where Pisces rules over. So that will give you an idea of how this transit showed up for you over the last 15 years. And one of the ways it's showing up is around denial, around a lesson in learning what the truth is within yourself, within your world. What are your perceptions? How do others' perceptions play out on you? Where were their boundaries? Where were their boundaries blurred? All those very Neptunian and Pisces sort of things. Now, this new moon is going to be bringing up hope through clarity. The clarity is going to equal peace. So remember that. Don't be scared of that clarity. That peace is coming, baby. The square to Neptune and Saturn right before this new moon, though, can bring up one final lesson, big or small. One final test, you could say. Something that proves to you that you have the confidence and proof that you are ready to move forward into the new paradigm shift that you are beginning. You've created this through mastering the lesson per se. I've been walking myself this path of self-awareness for 14 years since I originally got clean. Interestingly enough, when Neptune entered my 7th house and conjunct my Mars in Pisces, I am not perfect. I believe we are always here to self-evolve, but I will tell you this from someone who has chosen to walk a path of self-awareness for fun. One of the top tier feelings in this world is when you're aware of your own bullshit. Okay, and we have a lot of bullshit, so that's just take one little thread of your bullshit, one of your character flaws, and you face it head on until you master it. That feeling when you realize you are no longer triggered by it or you are no longer using it is such a good feeling. When you look back 10 years prior and you say, whoa, I now show up in these certain ways in a much more mature way, that is a very good feeling. And that alone, I think, becomes addictive, and why self-awareness becomes addictive, and why looking into yourself, right? That's the one thing we should be spending time on. We live and die with ourselves. We're here with our souls. So instead of focusing on what other people do, which is a natural thing inside of us, that I think it's our brain sort of deflecting so we don't have to go internal, because when we go internal, we feel uncomfortable things that our body doesn't like to feel. So naturally, we're kind of like, oh, this is what this person should do with their life. This is what they're doing with your life. You should do this. You should do that. And oftentimes that is just straight deflection when really we need to be focusing inward. We need to be focusing inward. And the more you do it, the more comfortable it gets to look at your own bullshit. The more comfortable it gets to hear things about yourself. For the most part now, I'm not saying I won't argue it with people I love. I'm not saying I won't say, hey, that's not true. But oftentimes when someone tells me about me, especially if it comes in a form of respect, like I'm usually really open to it. And often I'm not triggered. Like it doesn't feel like this gut reaction where it's like, oh, I can't, how dare they? I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting perspective. Let me take that in. Let me bring some awareness to it. Maybe that is how I show up. And that has only come from repeated times of looking at myself. I mean, if any of you are familiar with the 12-step fellowship, when I was in a 12-step fellowship, the 6th and the 7th step, the 6th step is literally taking moral and self-less inventory of yourself. Is that how the step goes? I forget now. It's been so long since I've done that step, but essentially I had to look, oh no, that's the 4th step, I'm sorry. The 6th step is the beginning to look at your character defects, and then the 7th step is removing them. So I had to sit there and write out all of my character defects that I thought that I was around. I had to ask people about what they thought my character defects were, and then I had to live in it. So again, if you really put in that work, nobody else can bother you when you know yourself at that level, when you know what you need to do, when you know why you do the things you do. When someone else questions that or brings it into you or throws in your face, it doesn't bother you, okay? So that long story short, that little spiel is to like get to know your own bullshit and face it forward. So, yes, I am someone who turns everything into a lesson, okay? But that's because, that's how I perceive this reality to be. I think it makes life easier. It makes the hard times easier. And that's one of the things I think we're meant to do here is evolve our soul. Because if we personally evolve, we evolve the consciousness of everything around us, the collective consciousness. And you could see that is one of our journeys here as a human species. Even though we're going backwards in some ways, a lot of us are moving forward. So remember, this is about learning and understanding and evolving your consciousness for the better if you let it. So with all that being said, don't be scared. This is a reminder. When I say one last lesson, you're already prepped for this one last lesson. The hard work at mastering this lesson is already over. The scary part is over. This is happening again to give you the awareness of mastering it and also a newfound confidence that is going to come from this in you, baby, okay? So we don't stop growing once we're 18, mentally, emotionally, or whatever, 23, whatever the baby boomers say, that we keep evolving until we die, if we're lucky. Because every time we evolve something, our life gets a little bit easier, even if it doesn't seem like that. So this new moon has a conjunction to Venus. So there is a real beautiful new gem being planted when it comes to your happiness. You will be ending this year feeling joyful and figuring out how to put your happiness first. Like I talked about on the last episode with the full moon in Gemini, we talked a lot around happiness. What does happiness look like? How do we stymie it for ourselves or others? I hope you all listened to that. And if you didn't, go back and listen to it, especially my mutable placements. But put your happiness first, okay? Or if you did a couple weeks ago, figure out and start to put your happiness first. This new moon will continue to grow that happiness, and you should be feeling some of the benefits of seeking out your joy and happiness and putting those first. Make this new moon about starting the new year 2026 with more positivity. We're leaving 2025, which was honestly a really kind of depressing and watery year. Honestly, the feeling was just very heavy. I talked about it if you go back to the beginning of last year's episode. This was a very watery year. And yes, there's a lot of emotional breakthroughs that we're going to be seeing and feeling and will contribute to the fire of this year. But with those emotional breakthroughs was a really emotional, heavy energy. And we have our own personal energies, but we're also on a very collective energy. And it just was it was fucking watery and depressing. I mean, even a lot of people don't even feel the holidays so much this year. So I'm happy we're leaving that watery energy, that lost energy of 2025, and now we're entering 2026. And this is going to be a fire year. Lots of fire, lots of beginnings, lots of starting over. And we're ending this year with a fire new moon, okay? So this is going to be the last big moon when it comes to 4 new moons of the year. We're ending into the fire sign with a direct Mercury and Jupiter, the ruler of this new moon, still doing very well, exalted in the sign of Cancer. The next full moon will be Cancer on January 3rd. So let's end this on a high positive note, my friend. So how can we bring more positivity into your life in 2026? Life is actually very simple and can be very simple, but our mind overcomplicates everything, okay? Everything. So here's some awareness questions. When do I feel happiest? All right, ask yourself that. When do you feel happiest in your life? Relax, see what comes to you. It doesn't have to be one answer. It could be multiple answers. It could be just a feeling, whatever that is. Where in my life am I lacking positivity in your life? Okay, so where in your life do you need to be more positive? Where do you need to bring in more positive energy? Where in my life do I need to direct more positive thoughts towards? Because our thoughts become real. And so where in your life are you having a lot of negative thoughts and you're going down that rabbit hole, and where do you need to shift that for positive thoughts? Really focus, write, meditate on this so you can be more positive and happy in your life in 2026, okay? We're getting shit started in 2026, people. We are going to be happy and free. Now let's talk Mars and Capricorn. For those of you who don't know, Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, which means it works at its best. It is strongest. It is most supportive. It has strength. Mars is the sign of strength, but it has a very good strength for Mars, which is a strength and a drive controlled by Saturn in the sign of Capricorn. So endurance, smart, quick thinking decisions, because quick decisions will come with Mars, but these are smart ones. So we are ending this year with Mars on a high note. And if you remember, we began the year with Mars at the lowest note it could be in. So we're ending the year low. We're ending the year high. We started it low. So I love, number one, that we're ending it this year better than we started it. And I think I've said that on the last 2 episodes. So I hope, guys, you guys are starting to feel that a little bit. My Mars ruled people, which is Aries and Scorpio, my cardinal placements, Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer. You guys are going to get the jump start that you needed. This Mars transit is going to have an opposite to Jupiter in Cancer, but it will really be around breaking through your comfort zone, because my cat placements, my Cancer placements, y'all love your comfort. You love what's familiar, but that's often what keeps you trapped or stuck in places in your life, with people, places, things, when you should be moving on, when you should be taking chances, when you should be switching that energy. You guys are often really scared to make that change. Remember, feel the fear, do it anyways. But this transit with Mars in Capricorn, the change that comes, you'll have strength and passion to move forward with safe and calculated energy and moves, which is what you guys need. If the change does have to happen for the better, you guys will do the best with safe and calculated moves. So this is going to be a safe and calculated time for you guys while Mars is in Capricorn. Not like my normal reckless energy that Mars can normally bring in a natural way. So Mars is much more grounded and level-headed in Saturn's sign of Capricorn. Mars thinks before it acts here, makes sharp and careful decisions. It is very precise. And again, there's just this natural grounded energy to Mars. So we do love when Mars is in Capricorn. So Mars is it's dedicated, it's constructive. It's making moves in the correct right way and building a nice foundation. So you have already planned this all out. Whatever is happening here, my friends, Mars is here to take you through the next steps of this phase. So trust this Mars energy we have right now. Again, what you have planned, you might be scared to make that next jump, but trust that Mars is there to help you. And then in February 13th, we have Saturn ingressing back into Mars, where we'll be for a little over 2 more years. And moving into Aries, Mars' sign will be for a little 2 more years. Now, it is said to be not at its best. Saturn, now that's for a different episode, Saturn ingressing into Aries, but I like to say this is going to be the beginning of, especially for my cardinal placements, of the new foundation you are laying this year. The decisions you make over these next 6 weeks with Mars and Capricorn, the decisions you will be making will be laying the foundation that you will be really starting to build once Saturn ingresses back into the sign of Aries in 2026. How are we already here? I just want to say I'm up here, as you guys already know, but for new people in the Philadelphia area, and it is too cold right now. I just got to say that. It's so cold. I want to be in my house. I want to be cuddly. But as I was telling a friend the other night, we have to hibernate. All animals pretty much. I'm sure there's a few that don't go into some sort of hibernation. And we are animals. So remember that. There is a time that our body needs to rest. There is a time that our mind needs to rest with all the distractions. And you might be more tempted to use your phone during this time, but don't. Use other distractions. Do distractions with books, distractions with cards, distractions with, yoga, cleaning your house. I was going to say something outside, but wait, we can't do anything outside. Nevertheless, don't be afraid of the darkness. Don't be afraid of yourself. Use this time for self-awareness. Use this time to meditate. Use this time to grow. Use this time to journal. Use this time to bring rituals into your life. That's what I kind of love and learn to love about the winter time, is I'm much more grounded when it comes to my daily meditations, my daily journaling, my daily manifestations, rituals, all of those good soulful practices, I'm actually much better at in the wintertime when I'm not distracted by all the outside things. So internalize that. If you're having a hard time with the coldness, if you're having a hard time with the darkness, use this as an opportunity to work on your mind and your soul internally, so you are ready for your hot girl, hot boy summer, baby. All right, happy new moon. I will be back next week with another episode before we end the year, and we'll talk a little bit on the next episode of what we can expect for 2026, the fire year. So guys, we're ending it on a high emotional note. You guys have all worked through some really hard stuff this year, some really hard emotional issues and patterns, and we're entering this year building ourselves up with happiness and leaving the sorrows behind. I love you all. Happy new moon. Have a good week, and goodbye.